The process of knowing the divine truth will always continue. The Great Divine Director, April 13, 2005. I am the Great Divine Director. I am, having come through this messenger. It seems strange that so many ascended beings have been giving you their dictations during such a short period of time. I must assure you that there is nothing strange about it. The ascended hosts wish to communicate with mankind and use every possible opportunity to do so. And we will continue until the situation in your physical world that is connected with the receiving of these dictations changes. I must tell you that in fact, every act of receiving a dictation is planned by us thoroughly, and we try to verify the information to give exactly what corresponds most to the current moment on Earth. In doing so, we also have to take into account the range of knowledge of the messenger and the natural boundaries of the channel of the messenger. Thus, for example, we cannot transmit the information that the external consciousness of the messenger does not accept due to its inherent limitations. However, I dare to assure you that we transmit all the information that can be transmitted through the physical conductor of that moment in time. Now I would like to move on to transmission of some new information. Imagine a vessel filled to the brim. If the vessel is full, then you cannot put anything else into this vessel. Therefore, our and your task, and one of the goals of these dictations is to try to free up space in your vessels for the perception of new information. Your physical brain, unlike the capabilities of your divine reason, is very limited. And if your physical brain contains information on some subject, you cannot perceive information on the same subject that has a slightly different content. Herein lies the entire difficulty of working with human consciousness. If you have received information from a source that you consider to be authoritative, and then information comes to you from another source that is new to you, and that source presents the same information in a slightly different or diametrically opposed way, you will most likely reject the information contained in the new source. And there is nothing bad in that. If you took at face value any information from any external source, you would simply be unable to exist in your world, because you would have to simultaneously keep in your external consciousness diametrically opposed, mutually exclusive information. Therefore, at some stage of the evolutionary development of mankind, some truths prevail, which are then gradually replaced by other truths. Thus, the evolution of human consciousness gradually takes place, which excludes the path of violence. The greatest difficulty that we face when dealing with human consciousness is precisely its limitations and tendency to accept as dogma information previously received from an authoritative source. Every time we begin to bring forth new information, we do it in a very delicate way, trying not to cause rejection and repulsion that leads to stormy reactions that cause too great outbursts of negative emotions in the space. I suggest you to look at the question of the fall of the angels a little differently. You probably remember how this question is stated in the books given through the previous messengers. I myself gave some thoughts concerning the fall of the angels, which became a part of the teaching that was widespread in the Western world. It is difficult to say why people like this teaching so much. Probably, the idea of rebellion against God and His laws is very close to human consciousness. And it is very tempting to ascribe shortcomings inherent in oneself even to the higher powers. Is it not why the rebellion of the angels has become so widespread in the Western world, that this idea is very dear to a modern person, that one can always justify oneself and one's behavior by referring to the fact that even angels in heaven rebel? Until now, we tried to get around this subject in the dictations, and if we touched upon it, we only mentioned the general questions concerning the struggle between two principles, the force multiplying the illusion and the force aiming to return to the primordial, non-manifested divine creation. And I must tell you that the legend of the fallen angels, as it is presented in many teachings widespread across the West, just reflects the cosmic law, connected with the constant requirement of the embodiment of the highest beings of light in human bodies at a certain stage of cosmic evolution. The highest form of life, that obtained its final liberation from the physical form in the previous cosmic cycles, at a certain stage, must return to the physical plane, into the bodies of humans who are on the lower stage of the evolutionary development, in order to endow these bodies with the spark of divinity, divine reason, and divine comprehension. The physical manifested world cannot be left to itself, it cannot exist independently from the entire creation. And because of the great presence of the forces of chaos in the manifested world, it requires constant care and guardianship from the higher manifested worlds of this universe. The process of the descent of angels into human bodies is a necessary stage of evolutionary development. And this process can be compared to the improving the taste of a pastry. If for some reason the pastry has turned out to be not very high quality, you enrich it. You can add eggs or butter to give it the best quality and properties. The exact same process is used to endow humanity with higher abilities, through the descending of the particles of the beings who are at the higher stages of evolutionary development, into human bodies. And this process of becoming a more divine person, more consistent with his original divine nature, goes on continuously. In the course of these dictations, you have been told repeatedly that any person who has prepared his physical temple receives additional light into his temple through the presence of the beings of light, who are able to manifest themselves through the physical conductor provided by you. We aspire to be present in the people of earth, and we strive to use every opportunity for our additional presence. There is no violation of the law of free will here, since a person who has reached the stage of cooperation with us willingly provides his temple for our presence. And the conceived plan is actually fulfilled, and you become our hands and feet. In the same way, millions of years ago, the descent of the angels, or the higher beings of light, into human bodies took place, and they endowed a man with reason and became part of his higher body, or Christ's self. I do not want to concentrate your attention on these subjects anymore today, because I anticipate too stormy a reaction from many who will read these lines. I have said enough to awaken your consciousness and give it a new impulse for knowing the divine truth. Do not think that you will immediately comprehend all the divine truth. Some years will pass, and the truth mastered by mankind with such difficulty will again require the replacement by another truth, which will bring the human mind even closer to the divine truth. This process of knowing the divine truth will always continue. It will only require a constant desire from you to know the divine truth, to aspire to comprehend it, and to free yourselves from any dogma, to which human consciousness attaches so quickly that it is too difficult to get rid of these dogmas, and sometimes it causes severe pain and rejection from the ego of the human being. Think about the fact that the feeling that you possess the divine truth in all its fullness is in fact a manifestation of your ego. How can a limited consciousness contain the unlimited divine truth? I have given you much new knowledge today, and I have tried to do it as mildly as possible, so as not to cause too large of mental and emotional outbursts in your aura. I am the great divine director, having been with you today.